we're talking about the various needs that are met when one has a home. And we talked about the physiological needs, psychological needs. We also have the aspect of belongingness. We talk of esteem needs, where a home is, if you have one, when one is able to own a home, it creates a sense of high self-esteem. You feel good about yourself. There's a lot that a home, it's not just a building, it's not just a matter of doing stones and concrete. It has a lot of meaning. It has it's like a signature by itself. One other need that a home does to somebody is there's an element of a self-actualization. We are all looking for self-actualization, and we are all looking to be able to get that place of living that dream life that we have always desired. A home is able to create that element where we are able to feel like we are living that dream life. In fact, I had one time a joke. Someone was saying that there are 6 things that a successful person has. Well, it's a joke, saying that a successful man has 1 wife, 2 children, 3-bedroomed house, a 4-wheel drive, a 5-acre piece of land, and a 6-figure salary. Well, of course, that is speaking casually. Of course, not really the full aspect of success. Success is much deeper. There's much to do with success. But indeed, as we are talking about all those 6 elements, there's a place where everyone is desiring to get there. And as they say, talk of a 3-bedroomed house, it could be 4-bedroom house, could be a 5-bedroom house. So there's so much that goes into our pursuit for success. So when one is able to build a house, when one is able to either buy a piece of land and build a house, or they are able to buy a fully finished building, whether it is in an estate or you have bought a house that is already complete, there is a sense of fulfillment that it brings. And I know many of us who are desiring to do construction, there is that aspect that we would want to pursue. So tonight I would want to have an engagement with us. Are you this person who wants to construct? Are you this person who intends to do a construction either this year, or you are intending to do construction for your home in the near future? Either you bought a piece of land or you haven't. You are still there trying to evaluate, how do I navigate? If you are there, maybe you can post, if it's a question, you can post a question on the live chat. I'm able to see those of us who have joined. Maybe you can also just give a shout out if you are there with us, so that we are able to see you are here. Thank you. I can see Giraffe. Thank you very much, Giraffe. I see David. Thank you very much, David. And can also see Nancy, can see Muihaki. Thank you very much. Maybe let's keep on engaging and asking ourselves, what are some of the issues that would want us to discuss, be it the process of construction. Now, one thing that I always say is that construction is not a cheap venture. Construction is not a cheap venture. There are huge costs that are involved. And interestingly, it is not that straightforward. It's like starting a business. Doing a construction is like starting a business, yes. Because starting a business, you require capital. And some of the businesses, you would actually require a heavy investment in terms of capital. The second thing is that just like a business, the fact that it's not straightforward, there are conmen, there are people who would want to take advantage of you. You need to have it right. You need to be clear on what you want. You need to be able to foresee the end as from the beginning. And sometimes we are taken advantage of when we do not have that in mind. See, Moihaki is asking about comparing precast versus building blocks. Are precast cheaper? I think your question is talking about walling, the precast wall panels vis-a-vis the building blocks, or what we call the masonry stones. Which one is cheaper? All right, I think we'll be able to have an engagement in this conversation, in that area as we move forward. As part of the lineup, I would want to ask Mihaki to be able to hold on as we continue, but as your question is taken, I take note of that, and it is part of what we'll also be discussing as we move forward in this conversation. But thank you so much. Let's keep on sharing our questions. Let's give our suggestions, our thoughts as far as construction is concerned. If you are there and maybe you have done your construction, how has your experience been? How has it been for you? Yeah. So I talked about the home ownership journey being a journey that is full of ups or it's like a jargon, it's like a puzzle. In fact, I've had so many people, when they are starting construction, they would want to position themselves as laymen. I hear many times when someone is starting the construction and you're engaging them and they're saying like, as a layman. And of course, it's because there are so many either terminologies or navigation that you need to, you need to move from here to there, what is expected of you, and you are not sure of that from the beginning. I hope by the end of our video tonight, we'll be able to get to that place where we can say that we have a bit of understanding as far as construction is concerned. And I don't want to talk about the whole spectrum of construction. I would want to kind of narrow down to home ownership. When we talk about construction, there are many kinds of construction. You could be constructing your own home, a residential house. You could also be constructing a residential apartment, or it could be a commercial building. It could also be an institution block. Construction is also found in roads, construction of bridges, culverts, and what have you. So there's so much in the area of construction that we can talk about. But for tonight, so that we are able to have a much deeper conversation, I would want to narrow down mostly to home ownership. And I want to believe that we'll be able to get to connect very well. So Nancy here is saying that she would want us to discuss on the beam and block. Yeah, the beam and block. It is also one of the alternative technologies that we'll also be talking about. We want to have a reflection on that as well. Now, before I talk about the alternative technologies, I want to engage us a bit in terms of what are the requirements before you start your construction. What are some of the requirements before you start your construction? And I'm assuming that we are looking at the laid procedure. In one of the previous videos, someone had asked on something that I talked about in the same line of requirements, and were asked, does this also apply to people who are in the rural setup? I would say that places are different. The rule may be there, but how it's followed up or how the authorities take up the matter would vary from place to place. There are places where you can easily just do construction and just start and you will continue. But there's a general understanding that there are stages that you need to follow from wherever you are in. Only that the authorities may or may not follow up with that. So the strictness by which the authorities follow up on these regulations would vary from place to place, from county to county, from region to region. Say, for example, if you are in very remote places, so interior, in a county that is far away from the city, then that means that it is easy for you to just go ahead and do construction without really having to follow up on or to adhere to the set guidelines. So the answer would be that yes, you are required to undertake those guidelines for the set procedures, but also you will also be required to You'll also be required to ensure that you follow the right process, but it's up to you, and also depending with the place that you are in. So lucky for you if you are able to just construct and continue with the whole process without having to do all this follow all these stages. It will be just good for you. But nevertheless, you are required to follow these procedures as a requirement of the law. Now, one of the things that you do or before you start any construction is you need to buy land. You need to buy land. And let me assume you do not have a piece of land. Now, where do you start? You need to identify a piece of land and then you go and buy it. Of course, that is obvious. Regardless of where you intend to buy. You will require to buy the piece of land and you identify this is where I want to build, and now move to the next stage. The next stage is the stage where we talk about having a plan, the drawn for you. When I talk about the plan, I'm talking about the drawings that would come from the consultants. The consultants here would be architects, engineers, or you need an architect, you need an engineer, and also a quantity surveyor, and also services engineers who here I'm talking about specifically mechanical and electrical engineers, right? So we first by getting the land, and then we come to the second stage where we have a drawing. And that drawing is what we call a plan. In this plan, it tells you, or you are, it is a plan is more or less a reflection of what you have in your mind. Okay, that I want a sitting room, a dining, a kitchen, or any other rooms for that matter, and this is how I would want them arranged. So all that is captured in form of a drawing. So basically, drawing is a communication, is a way in which in construction we do communicate. So the communication here is not only telling you what will be where, but also the communication is also talking about the sizes, or what called dimensions, of each particular room, so that it is easy for the people who will be implementing the fundis. It will be very easy for them to be able to undertake the construction. Then After the plans have been done, then we now start approvals. There are few documents that are required for you to be able to undertake approval. And approval here, I'm talking about approval in the county authorities, and other government, other regulatory bodies. And more specifically, I'm talking about NEMA and the NCA. NEMA is National Environmental Management Authority, and the NCA is National Construction Authority. So NEMA is more focused on environmental matters, and NCA is concerned on the overall construction of the construction. So the first stage you start in terms of approval is at the county level. At the county level, you first have to make sure that you have your land cleared in terms of rates, if it applies. For those places where the rates apply, the first step is for you to clear the land rates. Many times you don't need a change of use for residential homes, maybe unless it is so needed in certain areas that do not require that you don't need to, that you are not supposed to do a residential house and you'll be required to do a change of use. Maybe it's a commercial area, then you want to do a residential house. But in many places, you would not be required to do a change of use for a single dwelling. A single dwelling here, we talk about a residential house for yourself, for one home. Okay, so if you are doing several houses for several individuals in the same piece of land, then that is not considered as a single dwelling. It's considered as a multi-dwelling. And for multi-dwelling, in many cases, you'll be required to do what we call a change of use. Now, if you have cleared the land rates and you have come to this stage where you've finished and you are not required to do the change of use, then you come and start approval at the county. And you'll be required your own personal documents. You'll be required the drawings that have been done by the architect, and also will be required the drawings from the engineer. The other document will be required is a survey map. You'd also be required a title deed or any other document that shows your legal ownership of the piece of land. And for certain documents, you'll be required to attach an affidavit of this to just ascertain that indeed this piece of land is yours or is in your custody. Then you will be required to pay for that approval to be undertaken. So it's usually a process. It might vary in terms of time, how much it will take. Some places it might take, say, a few weeks, months, or even 2 months. Sometimes there are delays depending on how the authorities are behaving. So once you have done all that and you have attached every other document that is required, and it undergoes the process of approval at the county level, then you will be notified once the approval is done, and then you'll get what you call a construction permit. So the construction permit is obtained from the county authorities once you have finished undertaking your approval at the county, both for the architectural and the structural drawings, if the structural are applicable. And of course, the other documents that will be required to be attached alongside the plans, those plans, that is the legal documents or the professional documents from the professionals that you have engaged, their licenses, that is. So you are finished doing your approval at the county stage. You now move to the other authorities. You will have NEMA approval. You also then finish with NCA approval. So that stage is very important. Otherwise, if in many places you will find yourself being harassed just because you are not able to follow the right process. So maybe if at all you have a question in regards to that, I would want us to continue and engage. I can't see any other question, but I still have the question from Mwihaki and Nancy that are talking about the alternative building technologies. One talks about comparing the precast wall panels vis-a-vis the conventional building stones. That's what being called the building blocks. So are precast panels cheaper? Second question was asking about, would you also discuss on the beam and block? Would you also discuss on the beam and block conversation? Then Nancy is also asking, how long does it take for approvals? Do they have an expiry date? How long does it take for approvals? Do they have an expiry date? Well, I talked about approvals at different places. There is the county authorities, that is the county council. If you're in Nairobi, you'll be required to have your drawings approved in the Nairobi County. If it is Kiambu, the Kiambu County, so on and so forth. Okay, depending on where the piece of land is. Then, once that is done, then you go to NEMA, then you finish with NCA. How long does this whole process take? How long from the onset to the end? It depends. It depends with the place, the county, because now there are bureaucracies that would be involved in this process, and some places there is you understand, there are places where corruption would be the order of the day in some instances. I wouldn't shy to talk about that because it is one of the major struggles that we have in the industry. But ordinarily, the whole approval process should take between 2 to 3 months. Ordinarily, talking about NEMA, talking about NCA, talking about county. But if you are able to navigate faster or smart, then you can also be able to do it in less than 2 months, right? Then what is the expiry date? How long does this approval take to be before it expires? Okay, I would say 2 years. Normally, approvals obtained from the county are valid for 2 years. After that, you will be required to do a renewal. You are not going to start like approving all over again. You'll be required to do a renewal. But of course, you are not required to apply for a renewal if you are finished, or you are the tail end, or you are almost finishing. If you are still doing the structure, you'll be required to do the approval. But if you are doing finishes, say for example, you had done your house within the 2 years, the main structure, the shell, and then 2 years have lapsed, you are yet to do tiles. Do I go and get approvals done? No, you don't need to do approval or renewal for certain finishes like plastering. You had already done the wall. Okay, so now those ones can be easily admitted. But in terms of say laying a slab, doing a wall, doing roofing. Okay, I think even roofing, I don't find it possible for you to do, not to have roofed before then. Okay, so the expiry date is 2 years.